So this is a Labor Day shoot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're working hard on Labor Day.
Mm-hmm. Get your wearing white out of the way while you can.
Yeah, well, you know.
Today I don't.
Spent today building a couple tiny PCs. It's a pretty good labor, if I do say so myself. A little labor of love to these puppies here. And by the way, guys, it's Mike. Today we're actually in the Nerd Cave here for Cave Conversations. Got my buddy Wolfgang here,
Hello.
and today we just built some tiny PCs.
Yep. This all started off of a conversation about Flex ATX power supplies, and now here we both are.
Anyway, even though these were great, I'm gonna have a video about them going up later, either this week or next. So today we actually have a different conversation, and that's gonna be about phones right now. You know, iPhone, Android, or I guess iOS versus Android.
There you go.
And kind of the state of things, and our opinions on all of that. And of course, we can't have cave conversations without a beverage. So today, we're doing a little rum barrel-aged pumpkin. Pretty good stuff.
It's been a hot minute since I've had pumpkin.
It's 2019, so been around a little while.
One thing I will give it is it's got a nice color.
It does. Let's see. Is that pretty even? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Ooh. It's a pretty good pour.
I'll say.
So, you and I have been talking about phones a lot lately. Actually, my buddy Nick, who was on last week, has also been having this conversation with me a lot lately. But iPhone, Android, and if you go Android, like, what phone is good for upgrading at this point? There's just a lot that we feel as people who have been using Android phones for our entire smartphone life, that seems to be pulling us to iPhone all of a sudden. And I think you said you feel the same way.
Exactly, yeah. I know for me personally, it's coming down to the state of privacy and how that's handled on devices. If you're buying an Android device, you have virtually no privacy because everything you have is going through Google. And we all know that Google kind of changes their terms of service to be a little bit mystic. They purposefully try to make it so that it's confusing for people, and they regularly change it.
Mm-hmm.
So you keep on hearing in the news about people's information being leaked. You have, Google got hacked, so now all this information that they said they weren't keeping, but they were keeping, is now in Chechnya or something.
Yeah.
And with Apple and their walled garden approach to everything, as much of, I guess you could call it a dick move in the technology sector that it is,
Mm-hmm.
it has its benefits. And with smartphones, if it's all in an Apple ecosystem where they control everything about it, including the security, I'd say I feel more comfortable with them versus a Google, because they don't make their money off of advertising dollars.
Yeah.
So they don't need your information to advertise to you. You bought the iPhone.
And I know Apple has had their leaks over the lifetime of their little walled garden in iOS there, but I think it's only made them beef up their security more, and now they advertise it on billboards at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So it definitely is a big pull. I know for me personally, I'm just getting fed up with, unless you get a Pixel device, you're not guaranteed any certain amount of updates. And Google can try and force the manufacturers into agreeing to giving you updates. And it's supposed to be everyone is guaranteed 2 years of updates no matter what now on Android. But it doesn't seem to happen across the board. I don't know. It's hard to regulate when you have, hundreds of different manufacturers out there tons of them now, even in China, just using your operating system. It's really tough to regulate that as Google.
Especially since it started as something that was essentially just open source.
Yeah, and they're prideful about that.
Mm-hmm. It is one of their Achilles heels at this point, I think, with information security being so important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, like you had mentioned, Apple had their leaks, but rather than just kind of brush them under the side and then use the revenue to cover whatever fines and fees that the government body of whatever area they have these leaks in, rather than just spending money sweeping it under the rug and then just taking the profit and running, very alphabet.
Yeah.
I like that they've doubled down and have made consumer-focused protections. And one area I'm really seeing this is in the iOS 14 beta, the public beta that's been released. I'm on my several versions down now, and they keep on making little incremental improvements. But the best one so far is the little orange light that pops up in your status bar that tells you if your microphone is on.
Oh.
And that's for any app.
Okay.
Even your phone app. Which, I mean, they could just as easily say, no, we won't do it for our own phone app, but they're doing it across the board, it seems.
Now, what device are you running the beta on?
This is actually running on an iPhone 7.
Okay.
So, and I believe the beta and iOS 14 are going to be supported all the way back to the 6S. So back to what you were saying about updates, right now, it's no contest.
Yeah.
If you buy an Apple phone that's only a couple years old, just on the used market, you'll still get updates for probably 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah. I know they guarantee 5 years, but they've been, I mean, like you said, they just stopped updating the iPhone 6 this coming cycle, supposedly.
But not the 6S.
Right.
Which is very impressive for the time in which it came out.
Yeah. And it all goes back to that walled garden. They have full control over how the hardware and software work together. I know I even put a video out on this channel about using my iPad Air that's 7 years old, has 1 gigabyte of RAM, and it still runs just as good as day one, which, I mean, it comes with still the negatives of 1 gigabyte of RAM, where you can't run more than one tab in Chrome without it crying, and you can't run more than 2 other apps at any other time. Chrome by itself just kills every other app, but that's a Google Chrome thing.
That's why I got 32 gigs of RAM in my new desk station.
Yep. Yeah. Well, so you said you've been using the iPhone 7. That's not your main phone.
No.
What's your main phone?
Currently, my main phone is the Essential phone because I've used Android in my personal life for so long. I've really gotten used to it. And essentially, the deal breaker for me when looking at smartphones initially was with iOS, up until iOS 14, you were forced to have all of your apps on the home screen.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't live with that. I have virtually nothing on my home screen. Everything lives in my app drawer. Just swipe up, all my apps are there. But now, with iOS 14, they have the app library, so they finally did my most requested feature.
Mm-hmm.
They've incorporated a place to stick all of your stuff.
Yep.
So I don't have to feel like I'm going through my AARP application every time I open my phone.
And I think they're also hitting upon one of my most requested things as well, in being able to change your default browser and default email app to Gmail and Chrome, because those are what I've always used.
Mm-hmm.
I always have those loaded on any device that I'm using. And to be able to set those now as the default apps that open is huge. And then with having an app drawer, the one other thing that they could really do is allow me to put my apps on the grid of the home screen where I'd like. If I could start my apps in the bottom right-hand corner where my thumb is, that's my dream. That's where all my apps live on my Pixel. So those are the big things for me that they fixed 2 out of the 3. And they already have an amazing camera. They have, like you said, reliable updates and reliable security. And they definitely have the longest lifespan of any phone. because of all of those things. And now Apple's battery replacement program too really helps extend the life of their devices.
Yeah, I'm glad that people bullied them into that.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of the stuff is, it's surprising because Apple doesn't get bullied easily.
No.
Usually they are the ones who come out and they're courageous and they change the way everyone else uses their device, and it goes all the way back to when the iPhone 4 launched, and the way people were initially holding their phones, it would block out the antennas, the 3G antennas and the cellular antennas, and people would drop reception from holding their phone wrong. And, well, wrong. I said that because Steve Jobs famously said, "No, you're holding your phone wrong," to all of the people who complained. And that was like, oh, okay, sorry, and everyone changed how they held their phone to make a phone call or to text so that these things would be fixed rather than, even thinking that Apple could have done something wrong back then. But I mean, that's when Apple was definitely being more overall innovative.
Oh, yeah.
They were ahead of the game by so far in the smartphone market at that point, but that was before I even had a smartphone. And yeah, but I mean, from there on, they've dropped ports, they've dropped the fingerprint sensor for face recognition. They've just done a lot of things that everyone questions at first and then seems to just get used to, whether it's with their phones, their laptops, their desktops. The changes they make, people complain about them at first, but then they just kind of get used to them because you don't have another choice if you want to be in that ecosystem.
That's true. Also, fan curves.
That's also true. Another thing I wanted to ask you about. Now, you said you've always been on Android, and I know you're someone who you look for a good deal. You're not going to pay a large amount for a phone.
No.
So I think that's led to an interesting phone journey for you. What phones have you had throughout your lifetime in the Android ecosystem and experiences with each one?
Well, I know that my very first experience with a smartphone overall that was my own was the Galaxy S2 Skyrocket. So like that's a term I haven't heard anybody use in years.
Wow.
And it was all right and everything. It worked. It had a nice screen. Then I went to the S3, and that's when I realized that I absolutely hated Samsung's overlay of Android.
It was TouchWiz back then, right?
Yes, TouchWiz.
Yeah.
And from that point, it had a good camera, but I hated interacting with the phone. So that led me to OnePlus. That, a small Chinese company you might not have heard of.
Didn't you have a Nexus 4 in between all that?
You know what? I did have a Nexus 4 at one point, too.
I remember that was, so I didn't have a smartphone when you had your Nexus 4, and that's why I wanted to talk about this. That's the phone, I wanted that to be my first phone, but at that point it was hard to get. So I ended up going with the Moto X for my first phone, but go on. That phone, I remember, stood out to me when you had it.
It still stands out in my memory because it was one of the first Android phones I had heard about where it was going to get regular updates. And I saw that Google was selling it on their website and everything, so I picked it up with a bumper case. But still to this day, it's one of the nicest looking phones I've ever seen. Glass front, glass back. But under the glass back, there were little circles that were etched into at different angles, and these little circles would reflect light like they were almost CPU pins, is what it looked like.
I remember seeing that, and seeing that phone when you had that phone, it just stood out to me so much. I loved that design, the fact that it was one of the first phones with wireless charging.
Yeah.
With that glass back. I mean, this is a phone from, was it 2012?
Yeah, it's pretty early.
Yeah, it was quite a long time ago, and so it really stood out, and it was the vanilla Android experience, and it was like $300 brand new.
Yeah.
No contract.
And I think that's the phone that actually kicked me off into the stock Android, my love of stock Android, because I could do everything with it that I wanted to. And if I say I didn't like something about the way it was operating, or I really hated this one icon, I could change the icon of whatever app I wanted to anything else I wanted.
Yep.
I remember one time I had a picture of a campfire that was exploding, and I just set that as my Facebook app.
Yeah. No, that was, I mean, that was honestly when smartphones, I would consider smartphones, they were fun.
Yes.
Because no one had, it wasn't just the plain black brick we have today. Actually, that phone was probably one of the closer ones to just a plain black brick that we have today, if you don't count the design on the back. But there were a lot of fun smartphones still coming out at that
And I will
time
say
period.
that after the Nexus 4, it was the HTC One, but the Play Edition that I picked up, which was, I think, another fun design.
Yeah.
Because that had Beats audio, I think, built into it.
Yeah.
But it was the best sounding phone to this date I'd ever handled.
that
Because it
was-
had two front-facing speakers included in the chin
Yeah.
and in the...
Because it was the one
top
M7, right? But the Play Edition.
yes.
Yeah. No, that design was iconic at the time. That's
Yeah.
when smartphones, like I was saying, were fun.
They were trying new things.
Yeah. And man, I honestly miss that time period. I could care less about how small bezels are getting right now, and I know I'm always curious how many people have, interviewed truly care about bezels getting so tiny. I'd be curious because I personally don't care. I think that phone had an amazing design. I know it had black bars around the screen that you could get rid of at this point in time, but I think the silver speaker grills on either side would
So
be
nice
so
looking.
polarizing if it came back out today in a more modernized package.
I mean, but if Apple were to release an iPhone that looked like that, everybody would be releasing phones that look like that again. Because Apple is courageous.
Yeah.
They will take something that was done 4 years ago, right? Like,
But no one cared for it.
yeah, like 120 hertz displays.
Yeah.
Apple did it.
So, but anyway, so you had the 1M7 Play Edition, and then from there you got, I think you were starting to say before, you got into the OnePlus line of phones,
Yes,
right?
yes. I had skipped a couple there, but I actually dug up my OnePlus One just the other day. I just found it in a box. I'm kind of sad because the SIM tray got destroyed when I was switching over to my Moto G.
Oh, I didn't even know you had a Moto G.
I did for a number of years. I had the Moto G, and then
Which one? Do you remember? Is it the G4?
yes, the G4 Plus.
Okay.
The one that still had the removable back.
And the fingerprint sensor on the front?
Yes,
Yep.
fingerprint sensor on the front, little white square. But yeah, it just ended up destroying the SIM tray on the OnePlus. It just crumbled once I pulled it out.
Yeah.
But it's because I had used that phone to death. I got that phone right when it came out, so my information's probably over in Beijing somewhere, since every Chinese company is subject to the Chinese government.
True. But
They can say they're not, but they are.
and that's interesting. Like you said, you went into the Moto, and then did you go from from there to the Essential phone?
I want to say, speaking of my information being in Beijing, I briefly tried a Huawei.
Oh.
Great form factor, terrible software.
Mm-hmm. Well, they try to copy. They try to look like iOS with
Yeah.
their raw software.
So I had put on like your free version of Nova Launcher, which you can just replace it with the stock Android launcher, edit it however you want.
Yep.
No need to root. But yeah, now that's in a drawer somewhere, and I am now using the Essential phone, which has been pretty amazing. Great software updates. My only gripe with it is the camera,
Yeah.
which has been the consistent trend with every single stock Android device I've used, sans a Pixel.
Mm-hmm.
My wife is still using the Pixel 2, and it still takes better pictures than just about any modern smartphone that I've seen, just
Yeah.
because Google's imaging software is so good in their camera app.
Yeah, I can say the same for my Pixel 3. It takes awesome photos, and I don't need an upgrade anytime soon for phones, but I've already been thinking about it. I feel like I always think about it and which direction I'm heading. And I do love the new Pixel 4a. I think what they've done with that phone, the camera and the package that it comes in, and I'm still really miss my headphone jack. Pixel
Yeah.
3 was the first phone without a headphone jack for me, and going back to one that had a headphone jack would be amazing. But I've also been looking at that iPhone now that their prices are coming down. You can get the 10R or 11, whichever one now, that's like $600, and it's essentially the flagship design just with the colored plastic back. And then they have, even better yet, the iPhone SE, and I'm curious to see what they do with the new version here in about a month. But the current SE, that is their older iPhone 7 and 8 form factor.
And 6S.
And 6S, yeah.
It's the same form factor.
Same
you can
form
use the
factor.
same case if you want.
Yep, same form factor as all of those.
Except the Apple logo won't line up since
Yep.
they have it now in the center of
And
the
it
back.
doesn't say iPhone, it just has the Apple now.
Honestly, they've almost got it perfect. Once they just get rid of that logo, then they're good.
And the colors it comes in are actually really nice. I think that design is great. If the bezels were, I know I just got done saying I don't care about making the bezels all that small. I don't care about it if there's a purpose. If you put big speakers or something on there, and you really, if you benefit from having that size bezel, I don't care if it's there. Those bezels are just there because it's an old design. So that's a completely different story. I know, so going back to your journey in the phones, and you said Moto G you had for a couple of years. I used to recommend the Motos like crazy to people because I had a ton of them myself, and because they were actually purchased and owned by Google/Alphabet for about a 2-year period at one point. And that was, during that period, the Moto X, the Moto X2, and the Moto X Pure all came out. And I actually had the Moto X and the Moto X Pure in my smartphone lifetime. Those were my first 2 smartphones. And I absolutely loved them. And they were completely stock Android, except they had a couple Moto gestures, like the twist to open camera, shake to flashlight, which those gestures I still love to this day. I wish more phones had something similar. And then following that, I also had a Moto G. I had the Play Edition. I was saving a lot of money. It was an $80 phone, and it was great.
Yeah.
I still use it when I travel as an emulation device to play Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games. And the nice part about it was because it has it's a 720p screen and a giant battery in it, that it lasts forever on trips for playing games and stuff. So that's awesome. And from there on out, I moved on to the Moto X4, which this is when they were owned by Lenovo, but still pretty much the same experience. I really enjoyed that phone, and then to the Pixel. So I've had nothing but Motorola until just these last couple of years. I think they've kind of started to get more Lenovo influence into their phones, and I haven't liked them as much. The software updates haven't been as consistent, and that bothers me. And that's, again, why we go back to the iPhone thing, and that's why this whole conversation is happening, is Apple is consistent with their updates because they have control over the software on their devices. And no matter what, you are guaranteed 5 years from when the device is new, and maybe more. But guaranteed 5 years, the closest Android can come is Google is guaranteeing 3 years of updates on their Pixel devices. Maybe more, but guaranteeing 3. And that's why all Android phones depreciate so much faster than the iOS devices. And it's really starting, I think, more so as an adult who has the money to afford an Apple product now compared to being a college kid. But it's really starting to make me think about it more. What is the better value in the long run?
Well, as of right now, it's purely a numbers game. And if the iPhone SE falls into the category of, like, if it ticks all the boxes that you need for a phone, that's the phone you should buy right now. So long as you've got the money to buy it, that is. Like, if your budget is $100 to $200, get yourself the closest thing to stock Android that you possibly can. If you can stretch it to the $400 mark, which is where, like, a lot of the good mid-range to, like, low high-end phones are, get the iPhone SE.
Yeah. I think when it comes to that stock Android experience at that price, I think there's only a couple really doing it, and that's still the Moto phones, even though the updates aren't as happening as quickly, they're still running a more stock Android experience with the Moto gestures, and you can usually get like a Moto G8 for around $200, which is a great deal for what it comes with. The one gripe I have there is I wish they could fit an NFC chip into that budget for that phone. Even if they made it $15 more expensive,
it'd be worth it.
Using payment on my phone now, I absolutely love it. Just for the days I do forget my wallet in the car when I run into a store or something, which I try not to. That's never a good thing, but it happens. And then the Nokia devices. The Nokia, I don't know if they're on 8.1 or 9.1, whichever one they're on now, their devices have actually kind of been coming back into the game, and they're doing a very similar thing to Motorola, where it's not the best device in the world, but it runs a very stock experience for right around that $200 to $300 mark. And they actually have some more high-end feeling phones. A lot of them are glass or metal.
Yeah.
They look great. A better camera experience because they brought some of that from their old Windows Phone line. And
that is true. They had, at one point, I think the nicest shooter on a cell phone by a long shot.
Yeah.
That I believe the primary color they released it in was actually yellow.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly
it had like
Nokia
a 20 megapixel shooter or something
the
like
Nokia
that.
1020. I think that's what it was called.
People complain about camera bumps now.
Yeah, oh man, that thing was massive.
It just looked like a camera that was also a phone.
The good old Carl Zeiss lens on there. It was 41 megapixel, which was nuts for the time period.
Really just looked like somebody slapped their loo right onto the back of a phone.
Yeah, I remember Mr. Mobile reviewing that phone. I don't know if you've ever watched him on YouTube.
That's a name I haven't heard in a while.
His stuff is good. He was at Pocket Now back then, but I really like his reviews because he goes pretty in depth with stuff and it's entertaining. But yeah, I remember him just praising the camera on that phone. If only Microsoft and Steve Ballmer had got their crap together back then, I think they could have had a pretty good operating system. But they were too up their own arses, if you will, and
yeah,
they laughed at the initial iPhone release, thinking, "What a joke! It doesn't even have a keyboard."
Well, they proved that you really don't want a keyboard on a phone anymore.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, overall, I think we kind of really touched on it. It's coming down to, at this point, now that all phones are the same thing.
Yep,
they're the
a
same
bar
brick
with like a port.
It really comes down to software and comes down to reliability and how long can I get out of this thing. It's not as exciting to upgrade anymore because they're all the same. So what value am I going to get out of it over the long term? And it's completely changed. Phones aren't as interesting to upgrade to constantly, and they've plateaued. So I think manufacturers need to realize they don't necessarily need to come out with a phone every 6 months to a year. But
every 2 years.
Yeah. If they come out with a rock solid phone and really focus on their software experiences and come out with something every 2 years, or maybe they come out with, a flagship every 2 years, and on the alternating years they come out with their budget version. I think they could, especially Google, should maybe focus on something like that, because they're not going to compete with Apple at this point. They're going to keep falling behind a little bit by a little bit, I think, and lose the people like us who've been that Android holdouts for so long.
Yeah.
That it's gonna be tough for the holdouts like you and me. Waiting, we wait for that Pixel experience, or the OnePlus or whatever phone is gonna catch up to that Apple experience and give us the same amount of value. And that value could be either we pay half the price, or even 3/4 of the price of the iPhone. If we're going to get 3 years versus 5 years out of it, I'd say that's equivalent value. But
when you've got the new budget iPhone priced only $50 more than the new budget Google phone, not even just Android, but phone from Google.
Yep, Pixel device.
Where it's a difference of $50, but you get 2 to 3 plus more years of updates. It's going to be more worth it on the iPhone end of things, especially since a lot of people like being part of that ecosystem. There's not an Android ecosystem, really. I mean, there is, but Android kind of shares a lot of other people's stuff.
Yep.
For instance, Microsoft Word on Android. But I think that's kind of where Google's going. They're kind of going the Microsoft route, getting out of hardware, really just focusing on their software and ad revenue.
Which, it's funny you say that. That reminded me of one other thing I really wanted to bring up. You say Google and Microsoft, and you say Google's kind of working more towards the software, getting out of the hardware. Microsoft has been really getting into the hardware, and so much so that they're willing to put out a device that runs Android because they have faith in their hardware. And that device coming out now is the Surface Duo. I don't know, have you
I
seen
have
much
seen
about
that
it?
actually.
It's a polarizing. I've been talking about how phone designs are boring, and there's a few that kind of sit outside of that, and there's like the Galaxy Fold phones and the Moto Razr, which I'm not full in on the folding screen yet.
No.
But man, the Surface Duo actually is a nice looking device, and that's something that, depending on how that goes, I could see myself getting down the road. I don't know if you've watched much about it yet.
I've only really seen the cliff notes, basically, but it was something that did catch me a little bit by surprise, since Microsoft, for the past 5+ years, has really been focusing on getting their software and their patents into other people's things, which, with your whole Google and Motorola spiel before, we all know that the whole reason why Google took Motorola on was to strip several patents from the company before selling them off to Lenovo.
Yep, and that's why the phones got worse when they went over there.
But that means Apple's got to pay Google for some stuff, probably, because Google's like, well, since Apple's making us pay to use a gesture to unlock a device, because that's a valid patent.
Hey, we weren't talking to you.
But we're sorry if we upset you.
But yeah, and then there's, you brought up how Google purchased companies to take patents. The same thing happened. The HTC, I don't know, it was one of the 12, HTC 12. I don't know if there was a letter or not, but the 11 and the 12 both had the squeeze feature to activate the assistant, or you could set it to do other things. Google actually purchased, I don't know if they fully purchased HTC's mobile division for a little bit, or if they were just, it was when they outsourced them to help with the hardware for the Pixel devices, but they ended up taking that patent away from the squeeze for unlocking the assistant thing, which is another interesting little piece of history there. But back to the Surface devices. I really enjoy what Microsoft has done with their Surface lineup of all their Surface devices over the last few years. They are one of the few, I think some other companies, especially in the laptop market, are catching up with Apple's design and quality. But I think the Surface really was the big push on the Microsoft side of things.
I will say that Surface devices, on average, look nicer than Mac devices.
I love the Surface laptop. It's so clean.
Honestly, I think if Steve Jobs had seen a Surface in his dreams, that's what he would have designed for Apple.
Yeah.
Because it's cleaner looking. Whereas you can tell a lot of Apple design is resting on its laurels, which is why Apple got really kind of...
It's resting on the MacBook Air design that Steve Jobs pushed through. And they haven't innovated. Ah, balls. I knew that was going to happen.
That's all right.
Hold on, guys. I'm just going to... One of the lights died. We're going into cave conversation after hours. But yeah, we can keep going with it for a little bit. But yeah, the oh shit, what were we talking about?
We were talking about
the laptop design.
Yeah, the MacBook Air, how it's basically been the same, but I will say I've got the one from, I think, 2014 or 15 where, you know, USB-A was still a thing. And that laptop it still runs great.
Yeah, still has the MagSafe.
Yep, MagSafe.
That was great.
Honestly, that's another thing I disliked about Apple for a while, is they would take a patent and not let anybody else use it. The whole MagSafe thing, you shouldn't be able to patent a magnet. That's dumb.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be able to patent unlock a device using a gesture. That is a patent that Apple has, which I think
That's hilarious.
it's so dumb.
Yeah.
It's like saying blink once to do this.
Blink once if you need help.
A gesture could be anything.
Oh, sorry. No, you can't use that to escape, sir. Apple has that patented. You're going to jail for trying to escape your hostage situation.
Morse code is actually a copywritten language.
So, but yeah, what I was gonna say though is the MacBook Air's design. That was one of Steve Jobs' last big, designs that he put out, and or was there for.
Second to only the MacBook Pro pre-2013. That's
Yeah.
my favorite laptop chassis design.
And you can tell Apple is still basing their chassis designs off of those today.
Oh, yeah.
And they're still beautiful devices, don't get me wrong.
But
I'm surprised if Steve Jobs was still there.
the
RIP.
butterfly switches would have never been a thing.
Well, they would have never been a thing.
Or they would have been properly engineered before they went out.
I don't think MacBooks would look the same.
No, they'd look different.
There's no way, because he got so bored in such a short time period. He was so, ADD with the designs of anything Apple did. He would have walked in, OCD too.
I was like ADD.
No ADD, because he would get so bored and over. He would go in and see a design after a few years, and that's what always pushed them forward with him. Is he was like, no, we need to move forward. We need to keep innovating. We need to change this. We need to do something better with this. And he didn't mean let's get rid of a port. Let's get rid of just like a fingerprint sensor, like individual little things like that, and call it courageous. He meant let's transform something. Let's do something completely new in the industry.
I want to say, speaking of new things in the industry, I remember with old Mac computers, when they were still just called Apples instead of Macs. They were just people were calling them Apples, like they used to call the PlayStation 1 the Sony. He really, really pushed for like a separate keyboard design. Specifically, he was asking for something that his engineers at the time, when he first brought it up, said it was not possible. He said to just do it.
Yeah.
And this little keyboard form factor that you were able to like tuck in neatly, I don't remember exactly what product it was at this time, because that was really before I was using computers.
It might have been like the Apple II or something.
Probably.
It was early on in the home PC.
Yeah, but before they were called like Macs.
Yeah.
They were just Apples.
Yep.
Consumers loved it. Basically, he was trying to be forward thinking of what consumers would want.
Yeah.
Where, like, don't get me wrong, he's not without his checkered history and a bunch of things that I would not agree with doing. But he's almost like a musician in a way that defined a genre. Mm-hmm. They give you something that you wanted that you didn't know you wanted.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how he functioned with tech.
That's how they still market themselves.
It is, but like you can tell that's how they kept on trying to do things, where they'd have some jean plus suit jacket wearing motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, your denim and tweed come onto stage and say, "We're getting rid of this port. How about that, guys?"
Yeah.
Trying to give off kind of the same air as Steve Jobs, but you knew they were just hired as suits.
Yep. And it's not the same. They don't have a big push overall to make a change. They just have a very good marketing department who markets to their demographic. In their marketing department, like you said, their original goal back then was to make a device that people didn't know they wanted. At this point, they're not innovating something enough that it's a device people didn't know they want, but their marketing is marketing it in a way to make people think they want to do something they didn't know they wanted to do.
Like-
That's part of why we have so many more creatives, and I say that I'm doing the same thing starting YouTube here, but
But I
why
mean,
we
you
have,
also have a job.
true.
You're not just trading in your computer for an iPad because the iPad is your next computer. And it matches your new frames. You're
Very
doing it because
true.
you enjoy doing it. Whereas
Yeah.
I do think Apple does lean into, oh, you can be a creative in your mother's basement.
Yeah.
You just need this $2,000 iPad.
Mm-hmm. They definitely do a
Keyboard
lot
sold
of that.
separately. It's your new computer.
They definitely do push a lot of that in their marketing, where they're trying to get through into, I think, very much this millennial, like our age group, the age group of people who finally just have money because we're adults now and we have money to blow on things, and they want to tell us we can still do whatever we want to do, which we can, but they're just encouraging everyone in a way to do it that is also encouraging them to spend thousands of dollars on their products. And it works. Their marketing, they have the best marketing in the game. But they also have, back to the beginning, some of the best security, some of the best software married to hardware, and in the overall scheme of things, even though their garden is walled, because of their software married to the hardware, their security, and their long-term updates, some of the most reliable and non-depreciative products on the market, whether it be the phones, the tablets, or, well, I don't know if I can say the MacBooks right now because they're making the change over to ARM here.
Yeah.
So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes. I think they're ARM MacBooks. Maybe not the first run of them.
I would say second or third generation, they'll probably be doing something that's very... Oh.
Innovative, finally. Wow,
Yes.
that actually contradicts everything we just talked about. Holy crap.
We gotta just wait for the sand to get fine.
Yeah, I'm excited. Who knows? It might be my first Apple computer. One of those ARM MacBooks, second or third generation.
Well, I mean, you can still probably pick up a 2015 MacBook Air for
I could,
reasonably priced.
but I don't want to because I'd rather just pick up the 2012 MacBook Air at that point because it's the same thing.
That's true.
No, but all that aside, I don't want to pick up one of those devices at this point. I don't have a need for them besides trying out the ecosystem, and they're still a little bit out of my price range for just wanting to try out an
Yeah.
ecosystem. I've used Mac OS already on friends' laptops and devices, and I actually have a buddy who just bought a brand new MacBook Pro who said I could bring it on this channel and test it out, look it over. So if anyone's interested in that, let me know. I know this video's gone on quite a long time, so if anyone's still sticking around here after hours, hit that like button down below. I hope you're enjoying the content if you stuck around this long. And yeah, I guess we should probably wrap it up here.
Mhm.
So
I guess I'll just throw out there that I was the guy with the 670 who was mentioned in the last cave conversation.
that
Which-
he was.
And I will say that card is still holding up despite being only 2 gigs.
Yeah.
It's it can play a lot of the games from its time period at ridiculous settings. I know I was mainly using it to play like modded Skyrim and Metro 2033.
Mm-hmm.
But right now the computer that's in was gifted to my father-in-law because he plays older games,
Yeah.
and he was the type of guy who'd bring home a new game for the home PC. So all those old games will run fine on it. But I am thinking about upgrading him because the i5 that's in there, I think it's a 4770K or 40.
Was it mine?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's Sandy Bridge.
Oh.
It's 25. Was it 2500 or 2550K? Not sure what. I don't even remember.
But
I know it
saw
was
that-
25 something K. It was an unlocked Sandy Bridge i5 quad core.
But I do know, through seeing some recent benchmarks, that will not bottleneck. I believe it's up to a 1650 Super.
Yep.
which that'll play every game he wants to.
Yeah,
So I
so-
think what I'm gonna do is take that 670 out of there and maybe put it on a plaque for you, since I know it was your first GPU you
I
built
would
with.
love that. That'd be sick.
Plus,
Be a channel mascot.
yeah, I need another project now that the mini PC is done.
Yeah. No, we'll have to. If you were interested, you could benchmark a couple games and send them my way. I think I'll put them into the video because I'm going to be benchmarking mine for the video. Obviously, it's not going to be anything crazy with the 2600 and the 1650 Super, but for a little backpack PC that I can still fit my laptop and controllers and keyboard and everything in the same backpack with, pretty happy with it.
Oh yeah, like I'm a big fan of what Geek's done for making extra small form factor really affordable for people with their
Yeah.
acrylic cases. I'm excited to see where the market goes next, especially with the H1 from NZXT being so popular.
And the
selling out.
NR200 from Cooler Master, which
That's going to be the other case I was bringing up.
I love that case.
It is a premium looking case for mainstream prices, and
Yeah.
that's just going to draw more competition, because right now people are buying the Cooler Master case. People bought out the H1 from NZXT because it was the first super small footprint build
Yep.
you could get from a major manufacturer. Plus, they
Except
released
for-
it.
Unless you call it Inwin.
Yeah, that's true.
Inwin and Lee both have smaller form factor, but they're more specialized, I guess.
And they are a bit more expensive for what you get too.
Yeah.
Especially Lee and Lee.
Yeah.
I mean, make the Dan A4.
Yep.
I think that case released for like close to $300. So after taxes, it was
Originally,
like
it was like
with
one-
nothing.
Well, I think the first iteration was like 180, and it's gone up from there because of its popularity, supply and demand.
I know the original run did release for a larger sum. Like
Oh,
the
okay.
price has come down actually.
One of them was 180 that I was
Oh,
looking
yeah.
at a couple years ago on one of the releases. It might have been the V2, but yeah, I know that they could price that at whatever they wanted, and it would sell.
But
It's-
basically, you have to have the same build as just about everybody else in that case, anyway.
Yeah, and the same thing with the N case. I think the N case, and there's a couple others that are very similar to the Dan.
Yeah, the
That-
N case M1, I think that's a little bit larger. That comes in
Little bit,
closer
yeah.
to like 12 liters.
It's
I wanna
very
say.
close to the NR200 from Cooler Master.
Yeah, I
they're,
think
they're
the
very
NR
similar.
Yeah, it beats out the NR200, I think, by like 6 liters or something
Yeah.
like that. But I believe the N case M1 is the one that's the most compatible for its size.
For anything, yeah.
I think somebody fit two 240 mil rads.
Yeah, you can fit
into
a
that
lot
thing.
into that case for how small it is. And then there's the, I mean, we've really gotten off on a tangent here, guys. Sorry about that. We'll wrap it up soon here, but there's the is it the Ghost, the Loki?
Yes.
That-
That case is
with-
so popular.
With the high top that you can put on it, or the top hat
Yeah.
for the water cooler.
And that case actually got so popular that Noctua, with their L12S cooler, which is just barely too tall to fit into that case, even though it's like an enthusiast level, very expensive case, they made a version of the L12S air cooler that fits in that case.
Just for it, yeah.
Just for it.
That's crazy.
And that's actually the case I was going to get before I got my stack. I literally bought my Nuvolo stack, and then the Loki S1 went up for sale with their next batch.
Yeah. Yeah, guys, this guy over here is, I think, for the last couple of years built 3 or 4 small form factor PCs, and he's just speeding up at this point. He's like an Optimum Tech who isn't on YouTube yet. But he'll get there. So, yeah, I guess we can wrap it up here. This is definitely longer than last week's, but I think this was some fun conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it, if anyone's still stuck around. And, yeah. Cheers. We enjoyed some
Cheers.
pumpkin rum barrel aged pumpkin from, is that Southern Tier Barrel Aged series?
I would say it's
It
probably
is
a
their
Southern
Tier Barrel Aged series. I just wanted to make sure it was their Barrel House series or their Barrel Aged series. Yeah. Check this. Oh, it's hard to see without the light here in after hours, but yeah, check it out if you guys want a really good beer this Halloween. But cheers again. See you later.
Thanks for having me.